You're listening to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and Friends. And here's Russ.
Hey, welcome back to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and Friends. Hey, we're in the fourth segment. You know what that means? Finance. And today we have not Michael Maher. We kicked him out. No, just kidding. We got Sharon Crockett, his partner in crime. Hi, Sharon.
Yes. Hi, Russ. How are you?
I'm great. Having a good time. Man, we're growing our firm. And you know, it's the fun thing about growing is I'm meeting so many new people that we all bring something unique to the collective experience. And it kind of goes right along with your website, right? YourStoryBeginsHere.net. And I've always loved that one. You know, one of the things we talked about off air, so I thought maybe we'd just dive right in. And that's something that I think everybody should pay attention to. And so let's have a discussion around time frames of closing as it relates to lending, which then as that relates in the lending process to appraisals. What I'm seeing is that we face a double-edged sword as real estate brokers. When we have a willing and able buyer and a willing and able seller, and let's say we're representing the buyer, we want to keep that time frame between the time we make the offer and the time we actually close the deal as short as possible. And historically, maybe 3 or 4 weeks was plenty of time to get the appraisal, get the home looked at, maybe get an inspection, and then close the deal, do all the processing. But I don't think those are the days that we can count on right now. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, the national average closing time frame, I just watched an article, and it's 47 days on a national average. And we're blessed to be much less than that. We're still clipping along at around, our purchases, 25 to 30 days, but that's tight. And there's a cost to that. And, we try to keep that very tight and be proactive along the way with our appraisers. But with all the competition, it's tough for you guys, I understand, trying to get that deal accepted on the other end and having to maybe sacrifice a few days here or there to be competitive. And then later having to, communicate that, well, maybe we might not be able to close in 20 days or whatever it is. And so it's all about managing expectations among all parties, but the challenge is there as far as the competition.
Yeah, one of the things that is a real deal is that when rates drop to historical lows, a lot of people say, great, I'm paying 4 or 5 or 6% on my current mortgage. I'm going to refinance into 2.5 or 3.5. And so the appraisers get not only from the real estate broker's perspective that we deal in new buys and we don't deal in refinances so much, but you do as a lender and the appraisers do. So the appraisers are not only being asked to do because we have a strong real estate market with a lot of buyers, especially buyers moving in from other places that can now live and work in the same place, but they're also being asked to do all these appraisals for refinances. So when you think about just the number of appraisers, in fact, I had an appraiser on my show a few months ago, and one of the things I wasn't quite aware of is that they've passed some rules after the recession that basically said, and they've adopted even more stringent rules, that if you don't know what you're doing, you can get in big trouble, right? So if you appraise something in an area that you're not accustomed to or that you're unfamiliar with and you screw up, you could be held accountable as an appraiser at a very, very high level, very big fines and so on. So they're cautious about that. And then they also passed, as we look back in time, as you know, they made a lot of regulations more stringent after the recession of 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever that was, back in the Great Recession days. And they said, hey, look, we want you to go get more education. In fact, to be an appraiser, you now have to have 2 years of apprenticeship before you can be an appraiser. And that means somebody has to allow you to be an apprentice. Well, I know from personal experience, we had someone in our office, his spouse tried to get on with an appraising firm in our area and said she'd work for free for 2 years and nobody would pick her up. And she was very professional, right? So I don't know, to me, the supply constraint is a challenge, right? Because now all of a sudden, if you have 100 appraisals to do and you only have time for 10, what happens? Well, best case is it's a delay. And I want to caution, I don't know if you're seeing this, but I want to caution people, don't make those deadlines, those closing dates too tight, because there's no guarantee that the seller will extend just because you need them to.
Right.
That's a dangerous
definitely.
game.
Yeah, you definitely want to be a little bit more proactive among all parties, but it takes a cooperative effort because we've got several real estate agents and several lenders, and everybody's competing for that competitive edge. And I guess I would encourage those out there to be not only thinking about the closing date, but the other items, which you're very well aware of, that can create a competitive offer, as far as proactive phone calls and inspections and earnest monies and different kinds of things that can create competitive edge without sacrificing too short of a time frame. And often sellers are, they're selling a home and then they're buying their next home, and sometimes these transactions are 2 or 3 or 4 transactions deep. So if you're depending on a closing date for the next closing date for the next closing date, then if one person is short because it was cut too short, then that affects everybody down the line. And so it's just all a matter of, managing buyers' expectations, sellers' expectations, and everybody's expectations. So.
Yeah, it's very true. I often say unmet expectations on the inside lead to disappointment, and on the outside lead to litigation. So
that's very true, unfortunately.
It's good to, and to your point, one of the best ways, if you're a buyer, that can strengthen your negotiating position in a competitive environment, is to call Sharon Crockett and get underwritten pre-approval. And there's a difference between a pre-qualification letter that you might get on the internet that says, yes, you're qualified if, this and 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 this happens. That doesn't really mean much. But if you actually get a hold of Sharon at Prime Lending and say, I'd like to make an application. I'd like you to verify my employment, verify my income, run all my numbers. Then when you come to us as a real estate broker or in conjunction with us as a team, we make your offer and we can provide a piece of paper that says this person has been researched and is 100% qualified. That will put you in
it makes such a difference.
Yeah, to your point, that is a way to put yourself in the best negotiating. That's the next best thing to cash.
Well, yeah, and sometimes people are a little leery. I mean, you can reach us, by the way, at yourstorybeginshere.net. And, sometimes I'll have that call where someone's just wanting to do a pre-qualification. They're afraid to get their credit checked. They don't want their scores to go down. And the reality is that, you can have quite a few people check your credit within a 2-week time period, and it's not going to affect your score at all. So you can get a couple different opinions if you need to, but that pre-qualification is more just a conversation. And so I had a client the other day that said, I just want to get pre-qualified. I've been talking to a couple different lenders. And so we got them all dialed in. And then she said, well, I'll let you know. And then she found a house she wanted. And I said, all I need are your items and we can finish that pre-approval. I just need your financial, tax returns, pay stubs, allow me to run your credit. It's good for 4 months. We don't have to keep running it. Let's get you dialed in. So now you can, be rest assured you can make an offer when you find that house.
Yeah, it's a fantastic approach to making a very strategic decision to buy one of the biggest investments you'll ever make in a competitive arena where there is a lot of buyers looking, especially in certain price points. So one of the best, the other way is we can just get a hold of you on your cell, right? It's 425-327-1451. So if you want to get a hold of Sharon Crockett and talk about how you can buy a house and the process in which to go from A to Z and be in the best competitive environment you can be in, call this number. Got a pen? All right. Here it comes. 425-327-1451. And basically have this conversation, because I think just like we're basically counselors. It's a lot of emotion, and expectations are very important. I've seen some worst case scenarios out there as far as delays where a seller says, a month in, well, we only need a week extension. Well, I know, but I think maybe, my friend at work said somebody would buy my house for 10 grand more. So, I think I'm just going to see if they'll pay me 10 grand more and just not extend. Now, the funny thing about that is most of the time there's a catch. So I always counsel sellers, that old adage as a kid, the bird in the hand's worth two in the bush, and secondly, you have to start this whole process over again. So
yeah, and there's no guarantees.
Yeah, there's definitely no guarantees. And most of the time, just like when we were kids and played the telegraph game, by the time you come back around and get the real story, that person may not even be qualified. So you've lost a willing and able buyer.
Yeah. Yeah. Greed is definitely not a motivator. It's so tempting for people to go there. And I've seen it time and time again, where they're not willing to work with the buyers. And so it takes a proactive approach where sometimes we have to get involved and call the seller or the listing agent and just keep the deal together if there is a situation like that, just to keep everyone calm and, hey, let's get to the finish line, and make it a success story for everybody.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what you do. I've seen it time and time again. So I appreciate it. We're coming to the end of this segment and another show, so thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Always good to talk to you and be on here with you.
Yeah, we'll have to kick Michael out of this more often so we can talk to each other.
Yeah, he's up hunting, so we take turns, and we love it.
No, you guys work awesome as a team with incredible communication, which is, again, half the battle, right? Getting people to really communicate is the essence of any good transaction. So anyway, but as always, everyone out there in the land of COVID, this thing is going to end someday.
Yep.
Tough times don't last, but tough people do. And maybe just try to be kind. Maybe try to demonstrate a little more grace than usual. Maybe try to reach out and forgive a little bit more than usual. Because stress manifests itself in a lot of ways, and we don't always know what people are going through in their daily lives. So sometimes being just a little bit nicer, a little bit more patient helps. So throw that phone in the drawer, go spend some time hunting like Michael, or friends and family, and get out in nature. We live in a beautiful place. We're very blessed, and try to find some gratitude because it does take the stress away. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great Saturday.
Thanks, Russ.
It's a bright new day just came my way. I bought a new home, home, sweet home. Oh, home, sweet home. Keller Williams, I love my dream home. Home, sweet home.